The storm came without warning. Above the ancient city of Virelia, black clouds churned like a cauldron, lightning cracking open the sky. The streets lay, abandoned, silent except for a single figure racing through the rain. His hood was drawn low, his breath ragged. His hands clutched something wrapped in crimson silk, and whatever lay inside seemed to breathe. They said the oracle's voice had been silent for 300 years. Until tonight. The man darted through twisting alleys, his boots slapping against wet stone. Behind him came the sound of pursuit, shouting, steel boots striking in unison. But these were no ordinary soldiers. Their voices spoke in a language that had not been heard in centuries. Lightning flashed, revealing the obsidian spire rising over the city's heart. The same tower where the oracle's last prophecy had been spoken. When the sky drowns in shadow, one voice will decide the fate of all. The hooded man stumbled into the courtyard of the old temple, and there, in the shadows of the great bronze doors, a young woman stood, ink still staining her fingers. Leora, apprentice scribe, keeper of forgotten names. She stepped forward. Leora, who are you? What's happening? He said nothing, only thrust the silk-wrapped bundle into her hands. Hooded man, keep it safe. Don't let them find it, or him. His voice broke on the last word. Then, before she could ask, an arrow struck him through the chest. His body fell at her feet. The bundle writhed. Terrified, Leora pulled back the silk just enough to see a shard of polished stone, etched with a spiral that seemed to move of its own accord. The ground trembled. A voice, deep, mournful, and older than the city itself, whispered not into her ears, but straight into her mind. Leora, I am the last whisper of the oracle, and you are already too late. Her vision shifted. The temple walls dissolved, and she saw a battlefield under a dying sun. Men in armor clashed with beasts of shadow. In the center, a figure cloaked in white held the same spiral stone, bleeding from the palm. They will come for the stone. They will come for you. And if you fail, Virelia burns. The temple doors shuddered under pounding fists. The soldiers had arrived. Leora ran through archives, through shadowed halls, into a secret tunnel whispered of but never seen. Behind her, the doors crashed open. The sound of boots thundered in pursuit, and in the darkness the voice followed her, find the keeper before the shadow finds you. The tunnel beneath the old temple was a vein of darkness, carved centuries ago and left to rot. Leora's footsteps splashed in shallow pools. The sound too loud in the choking silence. She gripped the spiral stone so tightly her knuckles ached. Its warmth pulsed faintly, like the heartbeat of something alive. But she wasn't alone. The echo of pursuit followed, metal on stone, uneven steps, and beneath it all, a sound that wasn't human. The oracle's voice whispered in her skull. They hunt you. Do not look back. She didn't. She ran. At the tunnel's end, a heavy wooden hatch blocked the way. She shoved it open, stumbling into the cold breath of night. She found herself in the ruins of the old aqueducts, arches broken by time, moonlight spilling through their jagged gaps. The city's noise was far behind now, replaced by the restless wind. But the air here felt watched. He is near, the oracle murmured. Who? Leora whispered. The one marked to guard me. The keeper. And then she saw him. A solitary figure stood atop a cracked pillar, his cloak stirring in the wind. The moon caught the glint of his spear, and on his arm, faint blue light traced the same spiral pattern etched into her stone. He did not speak at first, only watched her. But before she could call out, movement erupted from the shadows. It landed between them with an inhuman hiss. Its body was tall but twisted, limbs bent wrong, eyes like pits in the skull. The hollow-eyed hunter. The keeper moved faster than thought. His spear pierced the thing's chest, releasing a burst of blue light. The creature crumbled into ash. Only then did he speak. Keeper, you have the stone. That means you have the oracle. And that means they'll never stop. Who are they? Leora asked, still breathless.
Keeper, not now.
We leave tonight. There's a path through the ashen hills, but once the shadow knows your scent, it never forgets. A distant horn wailed, a deep, metallic cry that rattled the stones beneath their feet. More shapes moved in the ruins, closing in. The keeper seized her hand. Keeper, run. And whatever happens, don't listen to the second voice. She didn't have time to ask what he meant. Because even as the oracle's whisper urged her forward, something else had already begun speaking in her mind. They left the last lights of Viralia behind them. Hours passed in silence, broken only by the crunch of boots on stone. The ashen hills rose ahead, an endless expanse of gray mounds under a cold moon, each hill like the burial place of some forgotten giant. Leora slowed as the wind shifted, bringing with it the smell of burnt earth. "What happened here?" she asked. The keeper's eyes stayed on the path. Keeper. A city stood here once. The shadow's first gift. The ground here was dead. No grass, no birdsong. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. Then the oracle's voice stirred in her thoughts, softer now, almost reverent. "Ahead lies the path, but also the test." She opened her mouth to tell the keeper, but before she could, another voice slid into her mind. "He's not telling you everything, girl. Ask him about the mark. Ask him how many before you carried the stone, and how many came back." The second voice was nothing like the oracle. It was smooth, cold, and full of poison. She swallowed hard. "There's something—" "Keeper, don't answer it. Don't even think about it. You can hear it too?" "Keeper, only when it's close. That's why we have to move faster." The hills narrowed into a canyon, its walls scarred with deep claw marks. The cold here was different, sharp, almost metallic. The keeper slowed, spear ready. "Stay behind me!" A shadow moved above them. Leora barely had time to gasp before a creature dropped from the wall, larger than the hollow-eyed hunters. Its limbs bent backward, its body covered in ash and bone, its head tilted with a crack, studying her like prey. The keeper stepped forward, spear blazing with light. "Run when I say. I'm not leaving you. You will. That's the only way either of us survives." The beast lunged. The clash of spear and claw rang through the canyon, the sound echoing endlessly. Dust rained down as the ground shivered beneath their feet. Leora gripped the spiral stone so tightly it burned her palm. The oracle's whisper sharpened to a cry. "If he falls, the shadow wins tonight." The second voice laughed softly in her mind. "Then perhaps you should let him fall." The canyon floor was a blur of movement, steel and shadow. The keeper fought like a man who had done this 1,000 times before, every strike of his spear sending bursts of blue fire into the night. The ash beast screamed, a sound so deep it rattled Leora's bones. But it wasn't enough. The thing was too fast, too strong. One swipe sent the keeper crashing against the canyon wall. His spear spun from his hand, embedding in the dirt between them. The oracle's voice cried in Leora's mind. "Now, child, take the weapon. End this." She ran to the spear, fingers brushing its cold surface, and froze. The second voice coiled through her thoughts like smoke. "Why fight it? Let the keeper die, take the stone, and walk away. The oracle will only chain you, girl. But me, I can free you." Leora's breath came fast. "You're lying." "Am I? Ask him about the others. Ask him how many stones he's kept." She looked at the keeper. His eyes, though pained, held no fear, only urgency. "Leora!" he shouted. Her grip tightened. She drove the spear into the ground between herself and the beast. Blue fire erupted upward, a wall of light. The creature shrieked and stumbled back into the shadows, melting into the canyon's darkness. Silence followed, broken only by the keeper's strained breathing. He picked himself up, leaning on the spear. "You didn't listen to it. Good. What did it mean, the others?" Leora asked, her voice shaking. He hesitated. "You think you're the first to carry the stone? You're not, but you might be the last." The oracle's whisper came again, softer this time, almost pleading. "Not all truths will serve you, child. Some will only break you." "I don't care," Leora said. "I need to know." The keeper's gaze was hard. "The shadow doesn't just want the stone, it wants the voice inside it. And every bearer before you was claimed." A chill settled into her bones. "Claimed? Their minds. Their will. The second voice you hear, it's the shadow's hand reaching for you. Once it takes hold, you're gone." Leora said nothing. The canyon stretched on ahead, but it felt narrower now, the walls pressing in. The keeper placed the spear in her hands. "From here on, you don't just carry the stone. You carry me too. If I fall, you finish the path. You don't stop. Understand?" She nodded. But in her mind, the second voice whispered again, soft, patient, unhurried. "You will stop. When I tell you to." The ashen hills ended as abruptly as they began. Before Leora and the keeper stretched a ridge of black stone, glowing faintly from deep cracks beneath its surface. Beyond it, the land fell away into a canyon so vast it swallowed the horizon. From its depths, an orange light pulsed, slow, steady, like the breathing of something alive. The oracle's voice trembled within her thoughts. The heart of the shadow is waking. The keeper gripped his spear. Once we cross this ridge, there's no turning back. The second voice purred in her skull. Then why cross? Throw the stone into the canyon. Let the keeper fall. You could be free before the sun rises. Leora's heartbeat thundered in her ears. They climbed the ridge in silence, boots scraping against the jagged rock. And then they saw it, rising from the canyon's depths. A colossal beast of molten stone and shadow. Its shape vaguely human, but too tall, too wrong. Lava poured through cracks in its body, and its eyes were two blazing coals fixed on them. The ground trembled as it pulled itself higher, each movement a grinding roar. The keeper turned to her. When it comes for me, and it will, you run to the far end. There's an altar. Place the stone there and speak the oracle's name. Do not stop for anything. What about you? He smiled faintly. I've been marked for this longer than you've been alive. The shadow's hand, big enough to crush a house, swung toward them. The keeper met it with a spear of blinding blue light, the impact shaking the ridge. Go, he roared. Leora ran, the stone burning against her palm. But the second voice grew louder, urgent now. If you give the oracle its voice, it will bind you in chains you can't see. You will never be free. Turn back, save yourself. The altar came into view, small, ancient, its surface covered in spirals matching the stone in her hand. The ground beneath it cracked as the shadow's roar split the night. The keeper's voice shouted over the chaos. Now, Leora. She raised the stone. The oracle's whisper filled her mind completely, calm, clear, and warm. Child, choose. Between her fingers, the stone pulsed, one beat for the oracle, one for the shadow, and Leora realized the final whisper would not come from the oracle at all. It would come from her. The first time the sea caught fire, the sky turned black. It wasn't lightning and it wasn't war. It was something older, something alive. Fishermen spoke of a strange glow beneath the waves, red and pulsing, like the heartbeat of a slumbering beast. At night, the ocean whispered in voices no man could understand. A low, echoing hum that made bones ache and dreams run red with flame. Our story begins in the coastal village of Karathos, a place that lived and died by the sea. Here the people feared storms more than gods, for storms could strip away their homes in a single night. But this was no storm. It started with Althea, the daughter of a shipbuilder. She was the first to see it. One moonless night, standing barefoot on the cold shoreline, she saw the horizon pulse with a red light. It wasn't the glow of lava or torches. It moved like a living thing, stretching, recoiling, then stretching again. The next day, the catch of the fishermen came ashore already cooked. Their nets dripped with steam, the fish's flesh flaking as if roasted over coals. The elders whispered that the sea was dreaming, and in its dream it had remembered fire. Legends spoke of this. They told of Pirith, the sleeping spirit of the ocean, banished beneath the waves by the gods for trying to steal the sun itself. It was said that if Pirith awoke, it would set the waters ablaze and burn the world until nothing but ash remained. Most dismissed these tales, until the whales washed up on the beach. Their skin blackened, their mouths frozen in silent screams. Althea, unlike the others, could not look away. She had always felt something calling her from the deep. When she dreamed, she saw molten waves and heard the roar of something vast and chained. And lately, the dreams were becoming sharper, louder. One night, as the villagers gathered in fear, a deep tremor rolled beneath their feet. The horizon burned brighter. And then, from the darkness of the sea, a voice rose, not carried by wind, but echoing inside every mind at once. I am waking. The ocean hissed like oil on fire, and for the first time in history, water burned. Althea knew then that the stories were true. The sea that dreamed of fire was no longer dreaming. The fire on the water did not vanish with the dawn. It smoldered quietly, a strange, shimmering red haze just beneath the surface, as though the ocean was holding its breath. The elders of Karathos forbade anyone from going near it. They prayed to the gods, casting salt into the waves as an offering. But Althea could feel it in her bones. Prayers would not stop what was coming. She returned to the shore at dusk, the wind tasting of smoke. That was when she noticed an old man sitting on a rock, staring at the sea with eyes clouded like storm glass. His name was Theron, the oldest sailor in Karathos. People whispered he had once sailed farther than any man dared. You've seen it before, Althea said quietly. Theron didn't look at her. Not seen, heard. His voice was low, like he feared the sea might listen. Years ago, when I was young, I followed the glow too far. The waves spoke to me. They told me of chains deep enough to cut the ocean in half. That's where Puraith sleeps. He told her of an ancient battle, when the gods bound the fire, spirit with anchors of stone and chains forged from fallen stars. But every 1,000 years the chains weakened, and if no one renewed the bindings, the world would burn. How do you renew them? Althea asked. Theron's gaze turned sharp. You don't, you offer yourself to them. A soul for a chain, that's the law. That night Althea dreamt again, but this time she wasn't just a witness. She was beneath the waves, drifting toward a vast living furnace. Massive chains wrapped around it, glowing white-hot from strain. Each link was cracking, and through the glow, she saw an eye of pure flame open and look directly at her. She woke with her sheets smoldering. The next morning, the sea rose unnaturally high, flooding the lower streets of Carathos. People fled inland, but Althea walked toward the water. Something inside her knew she was being called. Standing at the edge of the pier, she saw shapes moving beneath the burning surface. Not fish, not whales. They were colossal serpentine shadows, their bodies coiled around the great chains of Piraith's prison. And then, with a sound like the breaking of a mountain, one chain snapped. The ocean shuddered, steam hissed, and the voice returned, stronger, hungrier. One chain is gone. 4 remain. Althea realized she had no choice. She would have to go beneath the waves. The sea should have killed her the moment she dove in. Instead, it welcomed her. The water burned like molten metal, yet her skin didn't blister. The light here wasn't sunlight. It was the glow of Piraith's prison, stretching endlessly into the blackness. The deeper she swam, the more she felt a strange heat building inside her, as though the sea itself was shaping her for what lay ahead. The first thing she saw was the broken chain. It was thicker than any tree, forged from a metal that shimmered like silver and ash. One end hung free, drifting in the currents, its break jagged like a tooth. Around it swam the serpentine guardians Theron had spoken of, their scales glowing faintly in the darkness. They didn't attack her, they circled her, studying her. A shadow moved beyond them. It wasn't a guardian. It was Piraith itself. She saw only a fraction of it. Vast coils of fire, a single burning eye, and the shimmer of heat so intense the water rippled like glass. Its voice filled the depths, each word thrumming in her bones. You are not afraid. Althea's lips moved, though she wasn't sure the sound carried in the water. I came to stop you. A low rumble like distant thunder. Stop me or free me. Before she could answer, the water trembled violently. Something struck from above, a harpoon cutting through the water, glowing with godly light. The guardian scattered. From the surface, shadows descended, men in bronze armor, carrying weapons etched with divine runes. Hunters. They weren't here to help. They were here to kill Piraith, and anything near it. The water became chaos, flashes of fire, streaks of steel. Althea grabbed the drifting chain and swam hard, trying to avoid the battle. She knew now the hunters weren't just enemies of Piraith. They were enemies of her. A voice burned in her mind. If you wish to bind me, I will show you how. But if you fail, you will burn with the rest. The choice was made. She followed Piraith's gaze deeper, toward the anchor of stars, where the remaining chains were bound. They said the anchor had been forged at the dawn of time, when the gods tore a piece from the heavens and buried it in the sea. Now Althea saw it for herself, a massive spire of black stone, studded with shards of light like frozen constellations. 4 chains bound Piraith here, each leading into the dark beyond sight. One was broken. The others strained, glowing hotter with each passing moment. The hunters followed her down. Their leader, a man with eyes like polished steel, pointed his spear at her. Move aside, girl. This thing dies tonight. Althea shook her head. If you kill it, the sea will boil and the land will burn. The chains are the only way to keep it sleeping. The man's jaw tightened. Then you will die with it. They clashed. The fight was brutal. Steel against heat, water against fire. Althea fought not with strength, but with the strange power growing inside her since she entered the sea. She struck the anchor with her bare hands, feeling the constellations flare beneath her touch. The broken chain leapt toward her, wrapping around her wrist like a living thing. Pain tore through her, but she held on. Her blood turned to light running along the chain, sealing it anew. Piraith roared. Whether in pain or approval, she could not tell. The hunters fled upward, fearing the ocean's wrath. But Althea knew this was only a delay. The chains would weaken again. Days passed above, but time felt different below. Althea remained near the anchor, listening to the slow, restless breathing of Pirith. One night, if it could be called night, a deep tremor shook the ocean. She saw cracks racing along the second chain. This time there would be no hunters. No warning. She swam to it, but the moment she touched the chain, she saw flashes, visions. A world without Pirith's bindings, a sky black with smoke, cities drowning in boiling seas, mountains collapsing in rivers of fire. Then she saw something else, herself, standing upon the surface of a calm, endless ocean, her hair wreathed in flame. The voice returned softer now. "You are mine." The chain shattered. Heat exploded through the water. Pirith surged upward, the fire within it lighting the ocean like a second sun. Althea felt herself pulled into its heart, the chains whipping around her arms and chest. Instead of burning, they merged into her skin. And then silence. The ocean cooled. The fire dimmed. The massive form of Pirith faded into the dark, leaving only her, floating alone in the water. When she surfaced, the sea was calm. The village of Carathos lay untouched. But when she looked into her reflection, her eyes burned with an unearthly fire. The sea that dreamed of fire was not gone. It had chosen a new dreamer.
It happened the night the sky split open, not with thunder, but with a scream. That's what the villagers of Aloan still whisper, even though 100 years have passed. The night began quiet, with the moon veiled by thin clouds and the river humming its usual lullaby. But everything changed at the stroke of the 13th bell, when the air itself twisted, like it was choking on some unseen force. A tear appeared in the heavens. Not a cloud, not lightning, a tear, wide, glowing, and bleeding shadows. From that rift came the Warden of Ashes, cloaked in soot, eyes like hollow stars. No one knew his name, only that his arrival marked the end of the old peace. He floated above the village square, silent. People froze in place, unable to breathe, as if time had forgotten them. Then he spoke, but not aloud. His voice crawled inside their minds. "The seal is broken. The air must awaken. Aravell must burn again." Then as quickly as he came, he vanished. But what he left behind was worse. A child, a girl, no older than 10, lying unconscious beneath the shattered sky. Her skin was marked with runes that shimmered faintly, like embers trapped in ice. She was taken in by the village elder, Mira, who had once served the ancient Order of Flame, now forgotten and outlawed. Mira knew what no one else dared to admit. This girl wasn't just a child. She was the key to Aravell, the lost kingdom swallowed by fire and sealed from time centuries ago. A kingdom built on power, pride, and a terrible mistake. Mira named the child Lyra and raised her in secret, hiding her from the Church of Celerius, the order sworn to destroy any trace of Aravell's bloodline. But as Lyra grew, so did the fire inside her. On her 17th birthday, the runes lit again, brighter, fiercer, and a storm rolled in that didn't touch the ground, only the sky. The seal was weakening. The warden had returned. And Lyra? She wasn't running anymore. For days, the sky groaned with unease. A thin crack of light shimmered above Elowen, constant, silent, unnatural. The villagers refused to look at it. Some left offerings at their doors. Others fled. But Lyra stood beneath it. Her skin itched where the runes glowed. Not with pain, but with memory. They pulsed softly, as if something deep inside her was waking up. Mira watched with quiet sorrow. "You can't hold it back much longer," she said. "I'm not trying to," Lyra whispered. That night, Mira took Lyra into the old stone cellar, where ancient books and relics had gathered dust for generations. Beneath a loose tile, Mira revealed a small iron box, sealed with 3 locks and marked with a forgotten crest, a flame inside a spiral. "Before the world sealed Aravell away, your ancestors created a living fire," Mira said. "Not a weapon, a memory, a flame that remembers all it touches. The fire chose you. That's why the warden hunts you." Lyra hesitated. Why would a flame choose me? Mira looked at her, the lines on her face deeper now. Because you're not just a girl, Lyra. You're the last Ashborn. The word hit like thunder. Ashborn, the royal bloodline of Aravell. The ones who forged the flame, then sealed it away after it nearly consumed the world. Their lineage was thought dead, hunted to extinction by the Church of Solarius. But Lyra's existence meant one survived. The box opened with a click. Inside was a small ember, floating in nothing. No fuel, no flame, just a glowing coal, alive. It pulsed the moment Lyra looked at it, and her runes answered back with light. Then it spoke, not with a voice, but with memory. Lyra fell into a vision. Fire dancing across silver towers, a great city in the sky, and a crown forged from phoenix feathers. She saw battles, betrayal, and a final stand against something too vast to name. And in the center of it all, herself, or someone who looked like her, standing in fire, arms raised, unafraid. She gasped awake, the ember now floating beside her. "You've been called," Mira said. "The flame remembers you. It's time to uncover what they tried to erase." But they were no longer alone. Outside, the bells of the church rang cold and sharp. The hunters were here. They came before dawn. Cloaked in sun-etched armor, the hunters of Solarius rode, black-stamped horses and bore lances tipped with light steel, metal forged to pierce magic. Their faces were hidden behind golden masks, emotionless and cold. But they weren't looking for Mira. They were looking for Lyra. Mira had no time to explain. She pulled Lyra toward the east path, a forgotten trail that once led to the kingdom of Aravell, now swallowed by forests and time. "Take the ash road," Mira urged, thrusting a leather-bound satchel into her hands. "It leads to the old gate. The flame will guide you. I'll hold them as long as I can." Lyra shook her head. "I'm not leaving you. You're not just you anymore." Mira cupped her face. "You're Aravell's only chance." Lyra ran. Through the thinning woods, up the ridges of stone carved long ago by hands lost to history. Behind her, she heard the echo of light steel clashing, the roar of magic, and a final scream that shook the trees. Then, silence. She didn't look back. So, by nightfall, the woods gave way to ruins. Crumbled statues of winged beasts and flame-tipped towers peeked through the ivy. Lyra found a crumbling archway with the symbol from the box, a spiral flame. Her runes pulsed again. She stepped through. On the other side, the world changed. It wasn't just colder, it was older. The air shimmered with residual magic. Shadows stretched longer than they should. Trees stood taller, twisted, whispering in languages no one spoke anymore. This was Aravell's forgotten borderland, the Ash Road. According to legend, it was once a ceremonial path that connected the mortal world to the Flame Court, the heart of the kingdom. But now, the road was cracked, overgrown, and full of ghosts. Literally, as she walked, faint figures emerged from the mist. Soldiers in silver flame-etched armor, children playing with smoke illusions, a woman holding a sword with weeping eyes. They didn't see her. They were echoes, memories burned into the land by the very fire that made it sacred. Then the vision twisted. Among the ghosts, one turned to look directly at her. A boy, no older than her, with hair like burning cinders and eyes made of smoke. "You're late," he said. "The flame has already begun to forget." Lyra froze. "Who are you?" The boy smiled sadly. "I'm what's left of the first heir, and you're standing on the ashes of my failure." The boy led her without explanation, past the ruins, through a silent field of black roses that never died, along a river that shimmered with fire beneath its surface, flowing backward. He didn't speak again until they reached a hill of glass. Scorched earth melted smooth from a fire too hot for time to erase. "This is where Aravell died," he said. Lyra looked around. Nothing remained. No bones, no ruins, just the echo of fire and silence. "You said you were the first heir. What does that mean?" The boy turned to face her, smoke curling from his eyes. "My name was Kyle. I was chosen by the flame, trained to wield it. But I let fear decide for me. I tried to bind the flame instead of listening to it. It turned against us, burned everything. He looked up at the broken sky. They sealed the kingdom to keep it from spreading. But the seal's breaking now, because you're alive. Because the flame has chosen again. Lyra's runes burned hotter. Kyle reached into the air and pulled down a crown, made entirely of smoke and ash, barely solid, flickering in and out of form. This is the crown of smoke. It carries the memory of every heir before you, every mistake, every triumph. If you wear it, you'll remember everything. But there's a cost. What kind of cost? You will become part of the flame. It will burn your past, your doubts, your fear, until only the story remains. And you must decide how it ends. Lyra hesitated. She thought of Mira, of the village, of the ember still glowing in her satchel. She thought of her dreams, always filled with fire. Slowly, she reached out. The moment her fingers touched the crown, she collapsed. Suits. She awoke in a void of stars. Memories flooded her mind. Not hers, but Aravell's. She saw rulers of peace, tyrants of war, the forging of the living flame in the heart of a dying star. She saw Kyle's rebellion, the panic, the seal. She saw Mira as a child, clutching the last scrolls of fire magic as the gates closed. She saw herself, not in the past, but in the future, standing at the flame court, surrounded by both enemies and believers, with a choice no one could make for her: to awaken Aravell, or destroy it forever. She gasped back into her body. Kale was gone. Only the crown remained. Lyra walked the ash road alone now. But she was no longer just a girl running from fate. The crown of smoke floated above her head, whispering forgotten names, old truths and fireborn promises. Her steps no longer echoed. They burned. The road parted for her like it remembered its queen. Ahead stood the flame court, once the heart of Aravell. It rose from obsidian rock, towers shaped like inverted candles, still flickering with an ancient light. The doors stood open, untouched by time, waiting. Inside, the throne burned, not with fire, but with memory. As she stepped into the grand hall, she wasn't alone. Shadows watched from high balconies, echoes of ancestors, spirits of old kings and queens. They bowed their heads as she passed, not out of fear, but reverence. At the far end, the living flame hovered, pulsing, ever shifting, neither alive nor dead. It held the soul of the kingdom. It was the kingdom. It spoke, not in words, but in thought, image, feeling. Lyra felt it. You are the final heir. You have seen what came before. Now choose, awaken us, or end us. She stepped forward. In her hand, the ember Mira had guarded. In her veins, the memories of 100 rulers. Behind her, a world that feared what Aravell once was. Lyra closed her eyes and reached into the fire. Visions returned, of Kyle falling, of Mira hiding scrolls, of the warden crossing the rift. But this time, she saw something new, a path forward, a world where the flame wasn't used as a weapon or sealed as a threat, but shared, taught and guarded, not by one ruler, but many, not as a kingdom, but as a covenant. She whispered, "No more kings, no more gods, just guardians." The flame pulsed, and in a wave of blinding light, it transformed. The towers outside shattered, then rebuilt themselves from ash and gold. The Warden of Ashes, watching from the sky, lowered his head and vanished like smoke in the wind. The crack in the heavens sealed. Lyra emerged as dawn broke, not wearing a crown, but holding the ember in her palm, now glowing like a small sun. She would return to the world not as a ruler, but as a storyteller, to teach, to warn, to remember. And so, the legend of Aravell was reborn, not in fire and fury, but in a girl who walked through flame and chose not to rule it, but to carry it forward.
It was said that Silver Lake never reflected the stars, only the moon. On the night of the full moon, it shone like a mirror made of molten silver, so still you could almost believe time had stopped. But that night, the surface rippled. Ava saw it first. She had crept out of the village after hearing her grandmother's whispered warning. Never go to the lake when the moon is full. That's when it looks back. She'd always thought it was just another old tale to keep children indoors. But when she reached the rocky shore, her breath froze. Something moved beneath the water. Not a fish, not a shadow. Something huge. The moonlight lit the scales, each one the size of her palm, shimmering like polished silver. A slow, deep rumble vibrated through the air. Not quite sound, not quite touch, but it made her knees weaken. She stepped closer, unable to resist, and the ripples grew stronger. A shape began to rise from the depths. It was a head, long, narrow, crowned with spines that caught the moonlight. Eyes like molten gold locked onto hers, ancient and unblinking. The serpent did not break the surface entirely. Instead, its voice slid into her mind like smoke. Daughter of the shore, you've come. Ava stumbled back, her heart pounding. What are you? She whispered. Bound for centuries, waiting for the one who dares. Before she could run, the serpent's coils stirred the lake into a whirlpool. In an instant, the moon's reflection shattered into 1,000 shards of silver light, and Ava felt herself pulled forward, not by the water, but by the serpent's will. She fought to breathe, fought to move, but the world tilted and blurred. The last thing she saw before darkness claimed her was the serpent's eyes, and the faint smile curling in its voice. Your blood will break the chains. Ava woke to silence. Not the gentle hush of night, but the deep, suffocating kind that makes you feel the world has forgotten you exist. She lay on smooth stone, cold against her skin, the air thick with a metallic scent. Slowly she sat up. Above her, no sky, only an endless ceiling of glowing crystal veins. Pale blue light pulsing like the heartbeat of the earth. The lake was gone, or rather, she was beneath it. Shadows moved in the distance. Not human, long coiling shapes gliding between pillars, carved with runes older than any language she knew. Then she saw it, the serpent. Larger now, no longer obscured by water. Its silver scales caught the crystal light in shifting patterns, as if the whole cavern moved with it. Massive chains of black stone wrapped around its body, each link carved with seals that burned faintly. The creature's golden eyes found hers again. You stand in the hollow deep, child of the shore. The voice whispered inside her mind. I am Kelthir, guardian and prisoner, bound by those who feared the truth. Ava swallowed hard. Why me? Kelthir's eyes narrowed. Blood remembers. Yours carries the mark of the lake's first keepers. You can unbind me, or doom this place forever. The ground trembled, a low growl rumbling through the cavern. In the shadows beyond, Ava glimpsed shapes, jagged, armored things moving closer. They were smaller than the serpent, but just as alien, their eyes glowing a deep crimson. Kelthir's voice sharpened. The wardens. They guard my chains. They will not let you leave. One of the creatures stepped into the light. Its body was plated in black chitin, its hands ending in hooked claws. It hissed, the sound echoing against the cavern walls. Ava stumbled back, her mind racing. This wasn't a dream. This wasn't a legend. The stories her grandmother told were warnings, not bedtime tales. Choose quickly, Kelthir urged. The chains must break before the moon wanes, or the lake will become their nest. The wardens began to advance, their claws scraping against the stone. Ava's heart pounded, her pulse loud in her ears. Somewhere deep inside her, a strange warmth began to bloom, a heat that felt both dangerous and familiar. Kelthir leaned forward, his voice a low command. Touch the first seal and your path will be set. Ava looked from the advancing wardens to the great serpent's chains, and took a step forward. The first seal pulsed faintly where it clung to Kelthir's chain, a smooth black stone carved with lines of light, each flickering like embers in the dark. The moment Ava stepped closer, the warmth inside her chest flared, and the runes seemed to recognize her. The wardens hissed louder, fanning out in a semicircle. Their claws tapped the ground like a war drum. Touch it, Kelthir urged, his voice sharp with urgency. The chains feed on moonlight. The seal will shatter only if your blood answers it. My blood? Ava whispered. But there was no time to question. One warden lunged forward, its claws slicing through the air where her head had been a moment before. She ducked, stumbling toward the chain. Her fingertips brushed the cold stone. The cavern exploded in light. It wasn't just brightness, it was memory. Flashes surged through her mind. A woman with her face but older, standing on the lake's shore, a silver crown in her hands. The same serpent unchained, bowing its head before her. The vision dissolved into pain. The seal burned her palm. lines of silver fire racing up her veins. The warmth in her chest became a roaring flame. Caelthyr's chains groaned. One link shattered like glass, falling to the stone floor with a sound that echoed for miles. The serpent's body shifted, stretching slightly, the air filling with the sound of scales grinding against stone. The warden screamed, obeyed a shrill, otherworldly sound that made Ava's ears ring. Two of them rushed forward. Caelthyr struck faster than she thought possible. His massive head slammed into one, sending it crashing into a pillar. The other skittered back into the shadows. "One seal broken," Caelthyr said, his voice steadier now. 5 remain. But they will not wait for you to act, they will strike first. Ava's hand still burned, the silver light fading slowly under her skin. She stared at the serpent. "If I break them all, what happens?" Caelthyr's golden eyes gleamed. "The lake will be mine again. And you?" His voice deepened, curling like smoke around her thoughts. "They will have the power your blood was born for." Something about the way he said it made her uneasy. But before she could press further, a tremor shook the hollow deep. From the far side of the cavern, a deep rumble answered, heavier, hungrier. Caelthyr's gaze darkened. "The sleeper wakes. We must move now." Ava didn't know what the sleeper was going, but from the way the cavern walls seemed to sweat in fear, she knew she didn't want to meet it unprepared. The rumble grew into a slow, pounding rhythm, like a heartbeat buried deep in the earth. Dust fell from the crystal-veined ceiling. The water pooled at the cavern's edges quivered, sending silver ripples outward. Caelthyr's coils tightened. The sleeper should not wake yet. They've hastened it. They? Ava asked, backing away from the sound. "The wardens serve a greater thing," Caelthyr said, his voice low and taut. "The sleeper is their god, a creature older than I, older than the lake itself. If it wakes fully, the chains binding me will be nothing compared to the chains. It will wrap around the world." A sharp crack split the air. Across the cavern, a massive slab of stone slid aside, revealing a tunnel swallowed in blackness. The sound from within was not a roar, not even a growl. It was a slow exhale, warm and wet, that made the crystals above dim. From the shadows, eyes opened. Dozens of them. The wardens dropped to their knees, clicking their claws in a strange rhythmic chant. The air thickened until Ava's lungs felt heavy. Her burning hand pulsed again, but this time it was not in pain. It was in warning. Caelthyr lowered his head until his golden gaze filled her vision. "You cannot fight the sleeper now. Break the second seal. It will grant me strength enough to shield you. But if I keep freeing you..." Ava's voice trembled. "How do I know you won't turn on me?" A faint smile touched the serpent's mind voice. "You don't." Another tremor hit, sending cracks racing across the cavern floor. One of the sleeper's eyes shifted toward her, an iris like molten stone, fast and unblinking. The air burned in her throat. Ava's instincts screamed at her to run, but there was nowhere to go. The tunnel behind her had collapsed in the earlier fight. Her only way forward was toward the chains, toward Caelthyr. She sprinted for the second seal. The wardens shrieked in protest, leaping after her. Caelthyr's tail lashed out, smashing 2 into the wall, but more poured from the tunnel's edge. Her palm slammed against the seal. Again the vision came, but this time it was not her ancestor she saw. It was the lake itself, boiling under a black sky, the sleeper's shadow blotting out the moon. The second chain burst apart. Caelthyr reared up, his body unfurling further, his voice now a deep rolling thunder. 2 broken. 4 remain. Run, Ava! But the sleeper had seen her, and its breath followed like a tide. The sleeper's breath swept over Ava like a wave from some unseen ocean, hot, damp, and carrying the scent of stone left to rot in darkness. Her knees buckled. Behind her, Caelthyr shifted, scales rasping against stone as his now-freed coils filled more of the cavern. "We have moments, no more," he warned. "The sleeper will tear this place open." Ava's eyes darted to the 4 remaining seals. They glimmered faintly in the crystal light, spread across the cavern like pieces on a game board she didn't know how to play. Each one felt heavier now, as if the choice to break them had doubled in weight. "You said freeing you would save me," she said. "But what if it unleashes something worse?" Caelthyr's gaze did not waver. "The sleeper is worse. I am necessity." The ground shook so violently that a pillar of crystal crashed down, shattering beside her. Through the widening crack in the wall, Ava glimpsed something vast, a fragment of the sleeper's body, scaled in plates of obsidian that glistened wetly. One of its many eyes rolled toward her, and she understood why her grandmother's voice had always trembled at the lake's stories. The wardens began their charge, dozens now, crawling along walls and leaping from the shadows. Caelthyr struck them down, his body a wall of silver fury. But for everyone crushed, two more emerged. The heat in Ava's chest surged until she could barely breathe. It pulled her toward the nearest seal, but her thoughts tangled. If she freed Caelthyr completely, she might trade one prison for another. If she didn't, the sleeper would rise, and the world above would drown in shadow. Her grandmother's voice whispered in her mind. The lake looks back. And suddenly she understood. The serpent and the sleeper were both bound here, enemies locked in an ancient stalemate. The lake was not a prison for one, but a battlefield for two. Caelthyr's voice boomed in her skull. Ava, now! The cavern ceiling split, a shaft of moonlight spearing down through the dust. It landed on her, silver and cold, and the warmth inside her became something else, power. She made her choice. Ava ran, not to Caelthyr's chains, but to the center of the cavern. She slammed her palm into the bare stone, letting the silver fire pour out of her veins and into the ground. The light shot outward, racing along cracks up walls, over chains, until everything blazed like the surface of the lake. The sleeper roared. Caelthyr's eyes widened, and the world went white. When the light faded, the lake above lay still once more, its silver surface untouched. But neither serpent nor sleeper broke the water. Only the moon looked back.